What's going on YouTube? I just wanted to make a quick video for you here today on the Darkness Minion Necromancer I've been running in Season 4. The build is absolutely insane. One of the most powerful builds I've ever made in this game. And I just wanted to kind of make a quick guide. We've done, tier 100 nightmare dungeons, and, I think I have some footage from a 94 and 95 to kind of slot in here, and I'll let that run. And I'll kind of explain, why I made the decisions that I made. We'll go through the gear and the tree and the Paragon and all that kind of stuff. And, you guys can, use some of these things, do whatever you need to do. But if this is helpful, please like, subscribe, do all that kind of stuff. It helps a lot. Helps me know if you guys are actually liking the video or if I should do other content or what the deal is. So please go ahead and do that right now if you haven't already. And let's just get right into it. So we'll go ahead and start off right away with the gear. And for the gear, we're basically just stacking a ton of life, armor, attack speed, damage, and vulnerability. We're not focused too heavily on critical, just because basically it's hard to get a lot of attack speed and critical strike chance for your minions, as they only inherit 30% of yours. So my thought was we were going to focus heavily on damage and focus heavily on attack speed, and you'll see why. So we basically just try to get attack speed everywhere we can for ourselves and for our minions. So let's go ahead and get into it again. Gear. Here you go, have intelligence. That's our main stat. So you're going to be putting intelligence all over everything. Life. We have a little bit of life regen just for a little bit of survivability. We don't have it too much. That could probably be replaced with something else. But for now, it feels good to have a little bit of it. And then we've crafted on curse duration and armor. Body armor. Oh, and as far as our aspects, so this is just you and your minions gain, 10 to 25% increased damage reduction. Damage reduction is always, in my opinion, the best stat in the game, just because it's straight up all damage. So you just mitigate with this, 24% of damage. So it's absolutely massive. And then we have, red jewels in all of our items, just so that we get we stack a ton of life. And then next, we're going to go ahead and into our body armor. Again, intelligence, high rolled life, high rolled flat armor, and then we just have some poison resistance and a little bit of thorns. The thorns is because, one of our glyphs allows, or one of our Paragon nodes allows us to do more damage to enemies if they've been hit, for each time they've been hit with our thorns. So we do work in a little bit of thorns in there. And then as far as our aspect, just, pretty standard. You gain 0.6% increased armor for 4 seconds when you deal any form of damage, up to 34%. Again, just more armor. And, if you look over your armor, it says 85% to monsters of your equivalent level. So if we're a level 98, but we're fighting, 140, 150 level monsters, we want to try to stack as much armor as possible, so that it, makes up for that difference in level. Into our gloves, again, life, attack speed, a little bit of resist, and then we just craft on summoning damage and corpse tendril size. With those, the curse duration, corpse tendril size, those all roll into the same area, so you can roll them wherever you can land them. But corpse tendril size is very, very nice. And then we use each time your minion deals damage, they gain 14% attack speed. So again, like I said earlier, we're stacking a ton of attack speed. This is a very important one. It's a huge damage increase. And then onto our pants, we have, again, life, a little bit of regen, flat armor, percent armor, and then golems inherit some of our thorns. Again, that's just because so that we're not necessarily doing a ton of damage with the thorns themselves, but they do increase the damage the enemies take for each time they've been hit, so we want to try to spread the thorns around if we can. Ideally, I think that's probably on skeleton warriors, just because there's more of them and they're melee. You want them on a melee character. Having them on the mages isn't that great because they're ranged, and oftentimes you won't be close enough for the thorns to hit. So. And then again, socketed in red just for life. And then skeletal priests empower your skeletal warriors to deal shadow damage. So, again, we're stacking shadow damage. Feels pretty good. And you have a chance to stun. And then going into our boots, we're actually using Penitent just for the chill. Feels real good, you know, and we have some things in our tree that we'll go over later that allow us to do more damage to chilled enemies. So these are nice boots, good movement speed. Chill is really nice. Any sort of crowd control, stuff like that. So Penitent's nice, but you'd also be okay with like a, you know, a 3 evade charge boots with, you know, life, movement speed, stuff like that. Either way, it's up to you, but you do get a pretty good little damage increase from these. Our weapon, we are using a one or two-handed. You could go with. Initially I was using a focus and a wand, and then I was using this same aspect, and then on the other one it was increased damage, darkness damage to cursed enemies. The problem is, you know, your mages and your golem don't do darkness damage, so you know you lose a little bit of damage there. And I felt like the damage felt a little bit better using a two-handed with minions gain increased damage while alive. And we keep our minions, they very rarely die, and I'll show you how we keep them alive. But they very rarely die, so this is active most of the time. And then, you know, we intelligence, damage, we have a, you know, obviously a really nice roll damage on there. Then we crafted vulnerable damage, and then we got max roll minion attack speed and max roll summoning damage. So these crafted pretty nice. Again, it's a ton of damage, feels good. Our amulet, we're stacking a ton of movement speed and damage. That's kind of the goal here. Gloom, that's in our tree. We are taking it, and it is a nice little damage increase. That could be replaced with something else. But for now, you know, this amulet's pretty nice, so I'm pretty happy with that. And then aspect-wise, we just want more, you know, skeleton warriors and mages. We craft that on the amulet because we get 3. If you craft it on any of the other items other than the weapon, you'll only get 2. I believe you get 4 if you craft it on the weapon. So that might be worth swapping those 2 around, but you know, for now, this is how we have it set up. And then we are using the ring of the sacrilegious soul. And this ring I really like. I don't know if other people are using this, but it basically just helps keep our minions alive. They very rarely die with this just because you're constantly raising skeletons, and you also get free corpse tendrils every 13 seconds, right? It does not use your cooldown when you use this corpse tendril. So, you know, you basically get a free one every 13 seconds, which is pretty nice. And it, you know, corpse tendrils adds vulnerability and all that kind of stuff. And the ring itself is pretty good, you know, +2 to corpse skills, and then, you know, big life, a little bit of max essence, lucky hit chance. We don't use a ton of lucky hits, so that's not super beneficial, but the other ones are nice on there. This is a nice ring, super powerful. We dropped 2 of them actually from the first boss that you fight on the league mechanic, you know, the wolves or whatever, I forget the name of it. But we dropped 2 of them from her when we were in World Tier 2, and then I dropped another one from Duriel. So, you know, they seem to be fairly common and not super hard to get a hold of. So this is a really nice ring. I really like it. I don't know what I would use in place of it that would give me more utility. And then our last ring, attack speed, damage, vulnerability damage, and then we crafted on summoning damage and resource generation. So nothing crazy here. Again, attack speed, super important, and then, you know, we're just putting a ton of damage all over everything. So, and then as far as our stats, you know, as you can see, we're almost maxed out on all of our resistances. We just need a couple points of lightning res, and we'll be good to go. You know, attack speed, you know, isn't crazy. Minion attack speed is getting up there, and again, they inherit 30% of this, so, you know, getting 6 or something, you know, 5 or 6, and, you know, et cetera, and we'll get into that a little bit more later. As far as our Book of the Dead, we are using Reapers, and now we reduce Reaper's Wind Up, reduce your active cooldown, so that just allows us to use corpse tendrils a lot. There are other things, you know, that might be nice, like an additional skirmish warrior could be nice, etc. But the cooldown is good, and you know, it basically just allows us to use our corpse tendrils more often. Again, you could swap that around if you wanted to. Skeletal mages, we're using Shadow, and they just, you know, throw a different skeletal mages fire an additional shadow bolt every 3 attacks, so you know it's pretty nice, you know. But again, some of these could be swapped out. The only one that I found that I did try switching them around a little bit and I didn't like it was I like the blood, especially when you get into really high tier maps. It's nice that they just absorb 30% of the damage that you would receive, so that's really nice. But I also liked the bone golem that just, when they take damage, they make enemies nearby. When they do the spike attack, they make enemies vulnerable. But now we have a pretty good source of vulnerability, so this has felt the best in the high tier maps. I also used it leveling before I had a bunch of fortify and stuff like that. So generally speaking, this is the only one that didn't really feel nearly as good to swap to any of the other ones. The other, with the warriors and the mages, you can kind of move those around a little bit and kind of do what suits you. But the golems, the blood golem definitely was massive. So now getting into the Paragon. Pretty standard stuff. We just cruise through, we grab all these nodes in here, and then we use exploit right off the bat, just for vulnerability damage and increased damage every time you damage a vulnerable enemy. So that feels pretty good right here. Then our next tree we take, or our next board we take, is Cult Leader and increased damage. This is why we stack a bunch of attack speed. Minions deal 30% in 30% times increased damage for each 20% attack speed bonus they have. So when you start stacking your aspects and all that kind of stuff, it gets pretty crazy. We probably should have gone through the skill tree first, but here we are. So we'll go through that next. And then again, we take this up here. We take a lot of the rare nodes just because there's some of the boards that just aren't very good. So we fill up a lot of the boards that we are using. Next, we go into Wither, which I did use early on, and then I took it back later just because so little of our damage is derived from our damage over time effects that this was kind of a waste of 7 points or whatever it is. So again, we come down through all this. In this, we're putting in warriors. So this is just skeletal warriors deal increased damage, and then minions gain 30% increased armor. So this is pretty nice for survivability and whatnot. And then shadow damage, shadow resist. Our next board that we take, we come down into, where are you? Hulking monstrosity, golem, increased damage, increased life, pretty nice. We come down here for golem damage and golem attack speed. Our golems do a lot of damage. They're very, very powerful. Glyph, we have darkness, increased shadow damage per int. There's a ton of int in here that you can get. So 65 intelligence, we're getting almost 80% shadow damage, and it's not fully leveled. It's getting close, but it's not quite there yet. And then, we creep over here. Next, we then go up into Flesh Eater, and this is just consuming 5 corpses, grant 40% increased damage, so this is pretty nice. And then we also, our last glyph, we just use Revenge for 125% bonus to all rare nodes, so that's giving us damage to Elite, Flat Intelligence, and then Resistances and Flat Intelligence, and we probably won't hit that final bonus on this last board, just because they're so high. But again, these are pretty nice, and this board was worth taking over maybe filling in, some stuff like this, potion healing, life, things like that. So the final board was definitely worth. We are at 98 right now. I think for our final points, we'll probably come over here to this just to get that little bit of attack speed, just because it does make a difference. So nothing crazy. Again, ton of damage, ton of survivability, feels good. And then now, as far as our tree, we probably should have went over this earlier, but it is what it is. Again, we're going to take Decompose. A lot of people with their minion builds are not using a basic skill. I like using this. It's really nice for especially bossing. It helps add keep vulnerability up, when we're taking Acolytes Decompose, but also it helps generate corpses. And so while we're channeling, it's dropping corpses, and we have Lucky Chance, to drop more and all that kind of stuff, but every second that you're channeling, you drop 1 corpse, right? So with that in conjunction, we're constantly able to, keep our skeletons up and keep them healthy, because the priests are popping up and healing them, and then also, causing our skeletons to deal shadow damage. So it's just constantly, kind of that rotation just keeps going and going. So I personally like using Decompose. Some people are not using it. But that's where we are. It's felt pretty good, especially for bossing and just corpse generation and stuff like that. Blight, as you can see, we only have 1 node into this. I had 5 in it early when we were leveling, just so it would do more damage. Now we're just doing it so that, because we have nodes in there that allow monsters to take more damage while they're being affected by darkness damage over time effects. So that's really all this is it's just really allowing for our minions to do more damage while monsters monsters are standing in the pool. And then also it's adding, you deal more damage there when enemies are in the blight. And then it also slows, so we're getting crowd control and things like that. We do a ton of damage to crowd controlled enemies. Then we put 3 into Hued Flesh. Again, we just want to create a ton of corpses so that we always are healing our minions, and they're always and our skeleton warriors are constantly dealing shadow damage. Then we're taking obviously Skeletal Warrior Mastery. We take all 3, increase damage, increase life. We take Spiked Armor. This is just giving us some thorns and some armor. If this was just thorns, we probably wouldn't take this, but because you get the 15% times additional armor, this is a really powerful node. And then we creep down into Iron Maiden, and this is obviously, we take Amplify damage, so increase damage to cursed enemies. And then this does some damage, but it's free, so it doesn't cost any essence. And then you also gain essence for every enemy that you hit, so it's really, really powerful. When 3 enemies afflicted by Iron Maiden, the damage increased by 30%. Doesn't really do much. Heal might actually be better in this instance. But our survivability is pretty good, so we are on just a little bit of increased damage there. Movement speed, obviously the necro is pretty slow, so we want to stack as much movement speed as we can. Skeletal Mage Mastery, damage and life for skeletal mages. And then we put 1 point into Corpse Tendrils. We get 2 for free for our amulet. And then we go into Enhanced Corpse Tendrils, and Corpse Tendrils make enemies vulnerable. So as you can see, we have a couple different sources of vulnerability. That's why I didn't, I prefer the Blood Golem, just so, it's more damage mitigation for us. When a corpse is formed, fortify. So again, another reason why we want to have a bunch of corpse formation. This just helps us get all fortified up. And as you may have seen from the video, what I like to do when I first start a dungeon or a map or whatever is I just basically stand there and just channel decompose so that we can generate a bunch of corpses. We get our fortify up, and then basically it's self-sustained so long as you don't take any big massive hits or anything like that. And even if you do, it recharges pretty quick once the minions are all going and they have all their buffs and stuff like that. It's pretty self-sustainable, but initially you want to kind of charge that up with decompose on the first pack of monsters. Then we're going to fill out the entire darkness tree here. You get a ton of damage out of this. You get increased movement speed, have up to 15% chance to stun, and then deal a bunch of shadow damage. And then here again, this is why we like crowd control and chill. We do more damage to slowed or chilled enemies, and then increase damage if they're stunned, immobilized, or frozen. Those two 9% stacked. So if you have a chilled, stunned enemy, you're doing 19 times or 18 times, 18% times additional damage. And then gloom. This is from our amulet here. I'm sorry, these were from the ring, I believe. And then these +2 are from the amulet. And then when you damage an enemy with darkness skills, they take 10 times increased shadow damage. So that's nice. Again, like I said, we might benefit from something else on our amulet, but we still get a good little damage boost there. Coming down into our next grouping, we have Golem Mastery, life and damage. And then we don't take a ton of these. Again, 8-second Skeletal Priest. This seems to be enough to keep our minions at full health 95% of the time. A little bit of armor and resistances. Again, we didn't need to stack a ton of this because our ring is proccing our corpses so often and our Skeletal Priests that they seem to stay alive pretty well. It's pretty rare that they die. Inspiring Leader, we take 3. Critical strike chance, minion gains in critical strike chance, so that's where we're getting a little bit of crit from. And then minions increase damage while you're close to them, so these are pretty nice. We're not always close to them, but sometimes if you're not in the mix next to the warriors and the golem, you're probably standing next to the mages, so generally speaking you'll be near some of your minions. And then lastly, for our final node, we take Kalan's Edict, and minions gain 3% attack speed for each active minion. So again, we want to have as many minions as possible, and then they get 3% for each active minion. So it's pretty nice, pretty powerful node, and the reason why we're stacking all of our attack speed. So that's it. I didn't want to get too crazy into it. Just wanted to do a rough overview, so maybe you guys can use this as a reference, follow it, whatever you want to do. But like I said, it's done all the content in the game. It has not beat Uber Lilith yet. We're still working on Uber Lilith. Once we hit 100, we'll do that and figure out a way. See if we can't figure out how to beat her. So, but yeah, that's about it, guys. If you have any questions, please leave a comment, like, subscribe. Again, if I did anything that maybe I could improve the build, I'd appreciate any feedback in that regard so that I can, make this build as powerful as it possibly can be. I did miss Season 3, so maybe there are some things that I missed in Season 3 that are that will benefit this build, and you guys can help me out a little bit. But again, please like, subscribe, do all that kind of stuff. It's super helpful. And that's it, guys. We'll see you on the next one. I will post the full raw video of, like I said, I think I have a 94, 95 Nightmare Dungeon, so I'll post that if you guys just want to go see the raw gameplay and how I'm actually doing some things. And then I have like a level 40 pit. So that's like whatever level 140 monster, something like that. So I'll post that as well, and you guys can go check that out and see kind of how I actively cruise through the maps, and that's it. So appreciate you guys, and we'll see you on the next one. Peace.